For centuries, our greatest scholars have proposed that the pen is mightier than the sword. And in many ways, this is true. Some of history's greatest conflicts, including our own founding of America, were started not by a gunshot or a sword through the chest, but rather through a treaty and through word sign. Fortunately, none of us are at that point in our life right now where we need to be worried about starting and ending wars. The greatest battlefield that we face as college students is generally our college English class. So today, I'm going to teach you guys how to write a powerful English paper. It's a lot easier than you think. Writing a paper is just like having a great conversation with somebody. You need an introduction, something that will captivate them and bring them coming back for more. You need to keep talking to them long enough to let them know who you're about, and then you need to have something that will wrap them up and leave them wanting more. So before we get started over the nitty-gritty and everything, just a couple things that are real helpful to have around. You want to have your topic, what you're going to write about, and hopefully it's something that you're knowledgeable about. You're also going to need the research that you've done on this topic, because otherwise it's just you citing an opinion, and you're probably not going to get a very good grade. Another really good thing that's helpful to have, depending on which format you have, because there's two major formats in college these days. There's MLA, which I cannot remember what it stands for, and APA, which is an American Psychological Association thing. But having a handout or a workbook for it really helps you know what the format is and how to stay within it. So the introduction of your paragraph. This is your time to connect with your audience. You want to open up with something. You want to open up with an anecdote or a factoid, something that relates to your topic, but also makes it so that you can connect with your reader. Jane Lynch of Rutgers says that most college professors she surveyed know what grade they're going to give a paper based on the opening paragraph. So this really is your most important thing. If it sounds like you're very knowledgeable about the topic when you're trying to connect with the audience, your grade will reflect that. The big part of the introduction is the last sentence, which is usually reserved for the thesis. And this should read like your outline. You should have your main idea that you're going for, and then what your 3 body paragraphs are going to be about. Here, I have 7 deadly sins are best represented in the novel, which is my main idea. And my body paragraphs are about characters Clifford, Hepzibah, and Judge Jaffrey Pinchot. It's concise, there's not a whole lot of flair to it, and it reads exactly like my outline did. Your body paragraph is what's going to take up most of your essay. This is your chance to prove your point. Now, a lot of people have trouble juggling how long to make a body paragraph. It's really all about how much you have to say on the issue. My general rule of thumb is when you make a point, give 1 or 2 sentences about that point that relate back to whatever your topic is about. Here it would be about the novel House of the Seven Gables. And then use that last sentence to cite something from your research. That way, you get a good fill-out thing, but it doesn't sound like you're filling it out. Because if you end up repeating yourself, or if you end up just using big, long words, none of that's necessary. The biggest thing you have to do is just know what you're talking about and be able to back it up. It's a lot like court. Finally, you have your conclusion paragraph. This is where you wrap everything up, and you want to leave them coming back for more. The first sentence, again, is your thesis, but you don't want to repeat it. You want to reword it a little bit. Make it sound just a little bit different. That way they're still getting the reinforcement of the main idea, but at the same time, they're like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. This is what the hell that was about. From there, you want to end up with either tying the entire thing together, covering up any loose ends. Sometimes it's best to end with a question. Something rhetorical, something that you don't really need them to answer, but something to give them to think about once they're done reading your essay. After you've written your great conversation piece, some important things to remember before you turn it in is the first thing you write for a paper isn't necessarily going to be the thing you turn in. Read it. Have somebody else read it. If somebody else reads it that makes sense to them, and they think that you've proven your point, chances are you're good. Another big thing, especially with college professors, is staying within the MLA or APA format, which is why I recommended you have those notebooks. So that way you can go through and make sure that all your ducks are in a row. Because if you fail to cite something, that's plagiarism. Now your paper is a 0. It doesn't matter how good it is. Another really great thing that I found out last semester is the librarians, if you email them your paper and tell them what format it needs to be in, they'll let you know if you're in that format or not. And if you're not, they'll correct it for you. So there's a lot of really good resources for when you're writing your college essay. And again, it's a lot like having a conversation with somebody. You need to captivate your audience's attention. You need to keep it long enough so that they know what you're talking about. And you need to leave them wanting more. So I hope that this advice will help you conquer the battlefield that is your college-level English class. I will now yield the floor for questions.
The thesis statement at the bottom of the first paragraph, how do you do it? I forgot mine when I last tested.
What always helped me with my thesis is when you have a topic, you have a general idea of what you want to say. And from there, it's just a matter of outlining it. This thesis took me forever. Because I was like, all right, I want to talk about the 7 sins in the House of the 7 Gables, but I only have 3 body paragraphs to do that in. So I ended up just amalgamating it into the 3 big characters. So like I said, you open your thesis generally with what your main idea is, and then what your body paragraphs are. And that's really all there is to that. Oh, and just a little nifty little fact, when I wrote this last semester, it was an entire half a page shorter than it needed to be, and I still got a 95. So I can also make copies of this if anybody wants it for reference, but if you plagiarize me, I'll find you.